Hey guys, Chris Peach here, and welcome to the Money Peach podcast. Hey, do you remember growing up learning how to handle money? Yeah, neither do I. So that's why we're here today, to make your money fun again. You know, we're going to talk about the principles in life that actually matter when it comes to managing your money in a way that works. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Money Peach podcast. Before we jump into another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast, I want to take a second to talk to you guys about my free budgeting form. You know, the first step to getting on any financial plan is to measure the money. And the only way to measure the money is if you are living on a monthly budget. So after this episode, head on over to moneypeach.com and please download my free budgeting form. There's thousands of people now all over the world who are taking back control of their money using this same form each and every month. The number one habit of highly successful people is they're proactive. So be proactive with your money and get yourself on a budget. Welcome back, everyone, to another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. I'm Chris Peach. This is episode 61. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little nervous about releasing today's episode to you guys because I get a little emotional in it, and my guest Andy gets a little emotional for good reason. So my guest today is Andy Ptacek. She's actually a really good friend of mine, and for those of you who have been following Money Peach for a while, you might recognize that name, Andy Ptacek, because her and her husband Bruce were on our blog a few years ago as one of the most successful debt-free success stories where they paid off like $75,000 in less than a year. It's an unbelievable story. But soon after we published that post and they went debt-free, Andy's world was completely turned upside down forever. It completely changed. You see, she was diagnosed with brain cancer. Actually, she was diagnosed with inoperable brain cancer, meaning the surgeons told her that they could not treat her. They could not do anything for her. She had brain cancer and there wasn't much they could do. Now, that was a few years ago, and the good news is Andy is here today to share her story, so that's unbelievable news. Now, I've been wanting to bring Andy on the podcast for a while to share her story because it is absolutely amazing. It's motivating. It's going to change the way you look at things. It changed the way I look at things on a daily basis, and she was really nervous about doing it. At first, she had to think about it because she's private. She's never shared any of this with anyone before. And finally, she comes on the show, and it was tough. It was tough to do the interview. It was tough for her to talk about it, but I'm so glad she did because it's going to really open your eyes to why are we doing this? You know, what's the meaning of life? You know, she has faced death head on. She's a mother of 2 kids. She's a wife to a wonderful husband. She's a daughter. She's a friend to many. And all of a sudden, in an instant, she was told she has inoperable brain cancer. So without further ado, let me bring on my good friend to share her amazing story, Andy Ptacek. All right, Andy, thank you so much for coming on the Money Peach podcast. Very special guest today on the show because it's different. We've never done a show like this ever before. In the 60 plus episodes that we've been doing, we've never had somebody on that's going to tell a story that I guarantee you listening, you're never going to forget. So we've had a lot of entrepreneurs on. We've had people from all different walks of life talking about their success in business, but we never had somebody that's come on the show that literally is going to share a life or death situation. It's an amazing story. I actually was there watching it all unfold over the last couple of years, and it's absolutely amazing and has a really, really cool ending as we're here today, which is good news. So, Andy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I want everybody to get to know you a little bit, like I know you, but I don't know how that's going to be possible because we've been friends now for a long time. So, just kind of give us a little bit of background. Who are you? You know, mom, wife, you know, all that good stuff.
I am a mom and a wife. I have a 5 and an 8-year-old. I'm married to a firefighter, and I do marketing for our family business, Liquid Design. We've been around for almost 10 years. So, and I'm at the gym. The gym's my 3rd place. Home church gym.
Home church gym. So we're going to talk about Liquid. We're going to have links in the show notes to where you work because people out there who are thinking about, you know, starting a business in the online space, I think Liquid would be an excellent resource for them to go check out. And then obviously, how many times have I told people on the show that most of the guests that I meet have been through the CrossFit gym? I actually knew you before CrossFit, but CrossFit kind of ties this whole story together, which is really, really cool. So let's just go ahead and jump right into, tell me what life was like in, say, 2014, 2015, like normalcy. What was going on in your life?
So little kids. One of them would go to school in the morning. The other one I'd keep home while I went to the gym, take him to his preschool, and then go to the gym and work from home. I'd go in the office once a week.
So we'll have pictures of you on our show notes, but you're very, very fit. I mean, you're a CrossFit level 1 instructor, correct? And you do obviously lifting.
CrossFit weightlifting certification.
You're natural in the fitness world, right? You're very, very in tune with fitness, which kind of is crazy when we start talking about what's going on here. So, so things are normal, right? Life's good, no issues.
No.
Kids are healthy. Husband's not super annoying. He's here with us, so I can say that. But so things are completely normal, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that Father's Day, or right around that Father's Day. Tell us. I think was it 2015? Okay.
Yeah. So Bruce and I, our favorite thing to do is put the kids to bed early and have food on the couch and watch TV.
Okay. So what kind of food? Or just anything?
We were eating ice cream and watching Napoleon Dynamite.
The diet of extreme weightlifting champions. Yeah.
And watching Napoleon Dynamite, like the best movie ever. And all of a sudden, I was feeling these palpitations, which I have a history of having like minor palpitations, irregular heartbeat sometimes, but nothing that was ever, like I never took medication for it or anything like that. But it wouldn't go away. So and Bruce, he's an EMT, so I kind of trusted his judgment on like, what's good and what's not good. But after about 2 hours and these palpitations aren't going away, I mean, I tried to shower, I was coughing, I was trying to move or whatever.
Was it painful? Was it
No, it was just felt like I was exercising, but I wasn't. And so it got to the point where I couldn't feel my hands and my feet. And so he's like, all right, maybe we should go to the ER and just have them like see if they can make this stop, this irregular heartbeat stop. Because he was trying to get my pulse and he couldn't get my pulse. And he couldn't track it or count it. And he was talking to some of his friends and they were like, yeah, just take her in. And Hugh Chase, he was part of this whole journey too, his captain, because he always set up like, he would call ahead to the hospitals and be like, ask for this person. So we were able to get right in and
Okay, and so you're very healthy besides this. You're not living in hospitals.
They told me, they thought, were you taking like special supplements or something like that? They could tell by looking at me that it was irregular for me to have this like heart problem.
0% body fat. You're very, very fit. I mean... Yeah. Absolutely. I would be thinking the same thing. So you end up going to the hospital, correct?
Yeah.
And so what do they tell you at the hospital?
That I was in AFib, and they gave me some medication to take me out of it, and we scheduled a ablation for the next day.
So AFib, for those of you wondering, AFib is atrial fibrillation, and it's where the top of your heart just beats really, really fast. It's beating faster than the bottom of your heart, and so it's actually really common. And so the cure for that, one of the cures is medication. The other one's doing ablation, which is also pretty routine. I mean, it's surgery, but I mean, I think we all know someone in our lives that's probably had an ablation, correct? Yeah. So, I mean, are you panicked at this point, worried?
No, I mean, I was nervous because it was my first surgery, but they went in through my leg. And actually, my brother had Wolff Parkinson's, which is like even more scary than AFib. And he had the same kind of procedure, and he's younger than me. He was total pro. And so I was like, all right, my brother did it. I can do it. And it was good. Okay.
So was surgery that night, or did you get it a couple days later?
It was like the next day or the next 2 days.
Okay, so ablation, everything normal, come out of surgery, feel totally fine.
Feel great.
Go home? Okay, so...
And I wore like a monitor, got right back into working out again. They just kind of gave me parameters about like where my heart rate should be. And
I do remember that. I do remember you having that ablation and having that heart rate monitor. Yeah. Okay, and you felt fine. I mean, and it worked. Palpitations went away. You felt good.
Yep. It still's worked. My heart's good.
Okay. So then tell me kind of the next step to this process.
All right.
That would happen.
So about a week and a half later, I had this massive headache. And I have had headaches my whole life. But this was a migraine, which I didn't really understand. I've never had a migraine before. I haven't had a migraine before, so I wasn't aware of like what the aura was or what like that felt like. All I knew was in excruciating pain. I couldn't open my eyes. And when I did, I just saw like splotches. It just something wasn't right. And, Bruce was on shift, of course, because like when you have a firefighter husband, anytime anything happens, they're working.
Yep. So he's gone every third day for 24 hours. You're home with 2 kids.
So my mom comes over and she's, of course, moms are always extra protective and worried. And she's like, we need to go to the hospital. It could be having a stroke. And I'm like, Mom, I'm not going to the hospital for a headache. It's fine. But somehow she convinced me to go. We got in the car. We went to the hospital. We got out of the car and I was like, no, get back in the car. Take me home. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to be one of those people who go to the hospital for a headache. So should we go back home? I lay down and it got worse. And I was feeling all kinds of pain and pukey and everything. And I couldn't see. So she forced me at this point. It was kind of out of my hands because I was so in so much pain, forced me to go to the hospital. We got there, and they gave me some magic pill that made my headache go away. And then I was like, all right, let's go home. And they were like, no, we need to do a CT scan because you just had an ablation, a heart ablation. And we want to make sure that a blood clot didn't go to your brain because that's kind of like, a complication that's possible from a heart surgery. So I obliged and we had a CT scan. Okay. And the CT scan came back that there was something. They would never diagnose me it took maybe even a week to be fully diagnosed of what was going on. But they said, there's something, you might be having a stroke. And I was like, I'm fine. Look at me. And they did this, stroke test and whatever. And so they're like, well, there are strokes that happen where there's no symptoms. And they wanted to admit me and, got admitted. It was late at night by this time. And where I'm at is a hospital that you should never go to when you need neurological help because there is no neurologist on staff at the moment.
Which is common.
And I Skyped with one, so there's that.
Yeah.
But they couldn't, I'm like, dude, if I'm having a stroke, either I need this medicine, the special medicine that you only have a small window to get, or I need I didn't want to have deficits. Obviously being a physical person, that being my outlet, my stress reliever, I just couldn't even fathom the thought of not being able to do the things I'm used to doing. So, I basically left, whatever you call that when you're leaving against hospital recommendations. They
call that against medical advice, or in the professional world, it's AMA.
I am out of here. I'm ripping cords off. And Hugh Chase, my friend, again, Bruce's captain, he called to Good Sam. So we went straight to Good Sam. They admitted me. They took more scans, and they were like, yeah, I don't know. They're like, we don't know what this is. It's not a stroke, though. And I'm still not thinking this is a big deal. I'm just thinking I feel fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And they're still I was admitted. They had the heart things on me. I felt I felt they just were checking my heart situation. That's everything that ever was, checked. And then, I had by the 10th scan, we need to do you with dye and MRI, CT, whatever. I had every kind of MRI or scan that you could get. And then we had, the whole family was there in my room. We were actually just got done playing, we were passing, cause my kids were there. We blew up one of those balloon hands and we were all around the room just playing volleyball with this hand balloon. And the doctor came in, but not just one doctor, 6 doctors came in. And we were all all right. They have some news.
So when they come in, right away, are you thinking why is there 6 of them?
Yeah, I was. But I was always so cool and calm. And I just felt I didn't feel sick. So I didn't, I was expecting that whatever they were going to tell me, I was going to have some kind of, out or some kind of fix for. And they start using words that I don't understand. And so because, medical stuff isn't whatever, everybody's deal, but she was trying, then eventually, she's glioma and, then she's grade, we don't know the grade. And I'm wait, so what is a glioma? Is that a tumor? She's yeah. And I'm so does that mean it's malignant or benign? I know those words. She's it's malignant. So I'm so you're telling me I have a brain tumor? And she's yeah. And so I just kind of sat there quietly and I could see the other doctors, they were kind of lined up behind her. And one of the doctors was probably my age. She was maybe like a resident or in training or something. And I could see her start to cry. And I was like, what? So I started crying and I was like, I just need to know, like, I have 2 small kids. So I need to know, like, how serious is this? Like, am I going to be able to raise my kids? And she's like, we don't know. I'm going to have our neurosurgeon come talk to you next, and he's going to give you next steps. So they leave. I tell my family to leave, and Bruce and I just cry.
So let's go back for a second, because I haven't heard this story the way you're telling it now. So this is news to me as well. So, I mean, how long was the process from you having a fib and going to the hospital to being at Good Sam and getting told you have a brain tumor? Is this
like 2 weeks total?
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And you feel fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you feel like you can still work out.
Totally.
Not
I felt
having
great.
any issues.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. I'm trying to put myself in those shoes, and I've tried talking to your husband before. You know, he told me the Cliff Notes version of what you just said. You know, I didn't get the details on there, and it's like, wow. I mean, how do you get the strength to go through the next few minutes?
We just didn't. We just like cried, and like reality hits you so hard that like I think when you're in that moment, you have like, at least the way that I am, and I think Bruce with his job, he's kind of trained this way, is to just like put that on hold, those fears and everything, and just be like, okay, you know, what do I need to do? I'm prepared for whatever. I've got to like, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to kick ass. I mean, you have to feel it. I mean, when you're fighting, not for just yourself, but like your family, and you know that like you're a big part of what makes that whole, you've got to do everything you can. You just turn into a creature, not a person.
Sure. So family leaves, and I can only imagine, I mean, your whole family's there, so I can only imagine what they're going through as well. So
yeah. I heard the stories of like, they all kind of broke off and did like their own coping.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I think everybody listening right now is just, they're trying to put themselves either in your shoes or the shoes of your husband or your family. And you can't. I mean, you're trying to think, and, you know, when we're talking to you, you've actually lived through this. So the doctors, the 6 doctors, they leave. You and Bruce, what's the next step? What happens next?
It was mostly just waiting. We were always waiting for like that next doctor to come in to tell us, you know, what they thought. One doctor came in, like the doctor who was like in charge of my room, or on my floor. He came in and he was comforting. At least he thought he was being comforting, because he said, my sister had a glioma and she survived. And I'm like, oh, good. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to just survive. Like, I want to thrive. So, I was like, well, that's good. So you mean I can die? So like the reality of my mortality
hold on,
hit.
Go back for a second. When the 6 doctors were there, were you thinking like, this could be, I could die? Is that what you were kind of thinking? Or were you still thinking,
I knew. Like, I mean, we were all dying. But at that moment, I realized I was dying faster than everybody I know.
Okay. Continue. Sorry, I cut you off.
No. So then the neurosurgeon comes in, and he said that their protocol was to drill a hole in my skull and take a piece of tissue out and biopsy it. Then go from there. And the reason for that biopsy would be to know how to treat me with like chemo, radiation, whatever. Because the way it presented itself, he didn't believe that he could operate and get all of it out. He thought he could get most of it. But if you don't get all of those cells, like, they're just going to keep growing.
They're going to keep growing.
Yeah. So then you have like those next steps. And so we accepted that diagnosis.
What was the diagnosis then?
That it was inoperable, and I was going to have to go through these like stages, which would eventually lead to me being on like radiation or chemo. Okay. And then I said, they wanted to kind of schedule it and like keep me in the hospital and go. And I'm just not as I've learned even more throughout this, I'm not a hospital person. I don't like to be inside for that long. And I felt like I was getting, the jitters. I'm like, I need to get out. I'm like, is this something that is pressing like right now? And they said, no, the type of tumor you have is slow growing. You can take a break from the hospital, but we need to get you back in within a couple weeks. And I was like, all right, I have a family vacation scheduled.
I do remember
next
that.
week. Yep. We're going to go. We were going to Disneyland with the kids. And I'm like, I'll be damned if I miss this before brain surgery. So we went on vacation.
How old were you? I know, but I want people to know. How old were you when this all transpired?
Say 32? 32.
32. So young, very, very healthy, very, very young, very, very active. All
Yeah.
right. So you go on your vacation, right? I mean, what was that like going on vacation?
Amazing. The best vacation we've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm glad it was, but I would be thinking just the opposite. Like, I would be thinking most people would probably assume that you'd be like, no, it was terrible. I couldn't get my mind off it.
No, everything was precious.
The perspective of that vacation was changed because of her diagnosis.
Yeah. So you look at everything differently. You look at the sun rising and coming into your room, your kids and dates, experiencing Disneyland with them. I mean, it was amazing.
So you come back from Disneyland, and so now, I mean, I'm glad you're able to talk about this. I've been wanting to come on the show for a while because...
Yeah. I know I was going to cry. I knew it.
That's fine. I think I might cry over here. Yeah, I think people listening might cry. I mean, this is way different than anything we've had on the show. We've talked a lot about, successful businesses and, some ups and downs in life. We've talked about somebody losing everything and having to come back financially, but we've never talked with anybody that has almost truly lost everything and fought their way back. And I promise you listening, there is an incredible, cool ending to the story that I can't wait to get to, but we got to get through this part first. So just bear with me. Bear with us. All right. So you get back from Disneyland.
Yeah. Well, my mom, I was in no place to think about, anything like that I should be doing besides what I was told. And she was just like, if it wasn't for her, we would have been on a very different, more scary road. But she had the wherewithal to pull herself together and be like, we got to find out if there's other options. So she did research on the doctor that was supposed to do my surgery. And then she did research on, and this was at Good Sam. She's like, well, we're in Arizona. I mean, we have Barrows. It's one of the best neurological places, hospitals that you can go to.
In the country.
But she's either, you're going to Barrows or New York. They have Cedar-Sinai or whatever. I don't know what that's called. But there's another great one in New York. She's like, so we're here in Arizona. Let's, let me look into this. And I'm like, whatever, Mom, do your thing. I'm just enjoying my family for right now. She finally convinced me. Actually, she had gotten on the phone with what would be my doctor, his nurse assistant, and she got somehow ahead of all these other people who were trying to get in to see him. And her and this nurse kind of connected, and she's like, hey, send me your daughter's scans, and I will have the doctor look at them and call you by the end of today if you can get me those scans before lunch. A neurosurgeon.
Wow.
So he's
Your
the
mom's
best.
name's Jackie. Go Jackie.
So she's like, she comes over, she's like, get in the car, I need you with me because I can't get your scans without you. So I'm like, oh, okay. So she drives me down to Good Sam, and we get my records and my MRI CDs, and we drop them off at Barrows, and then we come home, and I talked to this neurosurgeon for an hour. He took an hour out of his time to talk to me and give me confidence. And he's like, this is not inoperable. I can get this. I can get it all. He's like, you are going to be okay.
What was his name?
Dr. Sinai.
Okay. I'm going to find information on him and put a link in the show notes because that's cool.
He was the best. And I mean, for a neurosurgeon, somebody who has such a stressful, intense job and probably has to separate personal from work so much because you would just be, no, who could do that? But he is the epitome of a real life rock star. He just freaking rocks.
So with this news that you get, so you go from, a couple weeks earlier getting told inoperable brain tumor. Done.
Yeah.
Sorry. Now, a couple weeks later, you're getting another doctor telling you, no, this isn't inoperable. I can get it all.
Yeah.
What's this emotional roller coaster like that you're traveling on? Because I'm sitting here and I'm freaking out.
I'm going on vacation thinking one thing. By the time I got home, I was like, all right, called my other doctor. I'm like, canceling that surgery. And then, scheduled with I had to do some pre-op MRI stuff, more scans with my new doctor, my new surgeon, and scheduling all that. And I just took a totally different path. So that was amazing. And then the whole experience that I felt the moment I started working or being seen by the people at Barrows, I just felt like this was really what was meant to be. This was meant for me. Oh my gosh, I'm so claustrophobic, and you can imagine like how that went down with so the scans I had to do. At first, they had to drug me so much for me to like even get in there, and like now I don't even take anything. That's how many scans I've had. So, but I remember that one of the original scans, I had to like wiggle certain parts of my body, and they were seeing like where, that area was on my brain. And so they were going to get as much as they could of my brain tissue, because a glioma or cancer of the brain, like it isn't like a separate tumor. It's like affected your actual brain tissue. So they scooped out my brain. So like about a golf ball size.
So I remember going back. This is stuff I do remember. So I remember your husband telling me this was going to happen, and he kind of said the same thing. It's not on the outside; it's actually in the brain
it's
tissue.
infiltrated the brain.
So I remember, one of the questions that I had in my mind was, well, if they're cutting out pieces of your brain, there has to be deficits.
Totally what I thought, and that's why these people at Barrows were so amazing, because they took time to like walk me through this stuff. So after that procedure or that MRI, and I sat down with a tech, and I was like, she could tell I was nervous, and I was like, so they're taking out part of my brain. And she's like, yes, but it's a good thing. She's like, because that brain tissue is dead. It doesn't work right anyways. It's totally morphed into something completely different. So as long as that cancer moves, it's going to kill or change all of those pieces of your brain. So you want that gone. It's dead in there anyways. You're not going to be any different. Because I was afraid I was going to come out and like, I would do all this research. Like if it's this side of my brain, it controls, not just like physical things, but like your emotional or your reasoning or your cognitive abilities of any kind. I was just afraid that I was going to come out a different person, like maybe even spiritually or whatever. I wanted to be me when I was done with that surgery. And she was very adamant that it would be.
Did they ever say like, so that brain tissue that died, what was it responsible for? Like what part of your body did that control?
Well, okay. So the right side of your brain, which is where my scar and my tumor was, controls for physical, the left side of your body. Mm-hmm. So then after surgery, I had deficits on the left side. Not so much my legs were just like barely, but it was really like my left arm and my left hand. Like it felt like when my kids would touch my hand, it felt like I was wearing gloves, or like when I tried to do anything, like it was like a limp hand. And it took a lot of time. Like I couldn't tie my pajama pants or my shoes or whatever for the longest time.
So you had the surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Going into surgery now with the new doctor who says he's going to get it all. So he goes in, kind of explain what that surgery is like.
So you're in the pre-op. Oh, I saw somebody I knew in pre-op that was having a brain surgery too.
That's very ironic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he had been through it before. He came over, he gave me a hug. He's like, you're going to be all right. And then I found out later that his wife was crying with my mom after we both went back. But, so yeah, I was okay. I felt good. I felt comfortable.
How long does it last, a surgery like that?
It was a good 5 hours.
5 hours. Okay.
So yeah, but I remember.
So your family is probably thinking the same thing you're thinking, like, okay, you had the doctors and the nurses say it's dead brain tissue, but fear of you're going in, you're having your brain worked on, your brain's where all your emotions, your thoughts, and everything. Is she going to be Andy when she comes out? they had to have thought that, but I think when you're in that situation, you just kind of like decide that I've already decided I'm going to do this. And I felt like I was there for a reason. I felt like God had set up all of these circumstances perfectly for me to survive. Like I had already decided that I was meant to survive, because if everything hadn't have lined up the way it did, then it would have been who knows how long from then, and I just had made up my mind, and it was in God's hands, and I was very comfortable and confident in that choice. And I did feel also that if it was my time, if I was going to not make it through surgery, that was also meant to be, and that I had done what I needed to do. So I just felt like totally calm and confident. On these surgeries, I don't know if you know, but you're not out of it when they roll you back. They roll you back and you're awake. And then they tell you where to go on the table and how to position yourself and,
you see everything and everybody, and it's so sterile and so crazy that you're just like, all right, here we go. And then they tell you to count back from 10. And then you're always afraid, like, well, what if I don't get out? Like, what if I don't actually fall asleep? But you do.
Yeah.
You actually conk out.
I did not know that. I didn't know you go back there completely awake.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So did that. I woke up in the recovery area and I was like super euphoric. So I woke up before my like OR nurse had come to like, you know, they kind of wake you up or startle you a little bit or get you kind of moving. But I had heard the nurse next to me trying to wake up a patient next to me. And she was giving this patient like all these commands. So I was like, I'm going to do what she's telling him to do. So she would say like, do this, do that. And I'm doing it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can move my feet. I can move my hands. And I can, you know, I can see what letter that is. That's the letter P. So like, I felt like, and I was trying to have these like thoughts. Do I know the alphabet? Like I was just like trying out all my skills like immediately to see what was left and what was not. And of course, like there's so much swelling that nothing's perfect. And I remember these like feelings and how I felt. And then I see a picture of me at that moment. Someone had snapped a picture of me like showing off that I could still hook grip with my hands. And I look like dead in the face, like eyes. I'm just like, eh. But my feeling inside was like so euphoric that I was here and I still have more to do. So it was amazing.
Wow. Okay. So when was that then, the surgery?
That was in August 2015. And then after that, I guess, you know, everything's perfect. Like I had no complications. The doctor came in, got it all positive. You did great. And I was like, you're amazing. And, you know, I wanted him to be part of my family. Like I wanted to like invite him for Christmas, Thanksgiving from now on.
Because he saved your life.
He did. And he saved my family. I mean, I mean, I don't think people who are in those positions realize like what they really do. Like I know they have to go through hard times with what they do, but like the good stuff, like I wonder if they ever realize they are incredible people.
What would life feel like if you no longer had to worry about money? What would life look like with $10,000 in the bank and zero debt? Do you realize you're really only a few decisions away from living life on your terms and not the bank's? How do I know this? Well, because we were once living paycheck to paycheck, completely broke and facing a mountain of debt. However, fast forward to today, we're debt-free, we're building wealth, and we live life on our terms, not the bank's. So now it's your turn. I would love for you to join me on my free workshop where I share the same step-by-step system we use to take back our life and our money once and for all. So head on over to moneypeach.com/workshop and grab your free spot in this online training that you're going to absolutely love. Once again, that's moneypeach.com/workshop.
Everything went great. We went home. I actually went back to the gym. I was prescribed occupational therapy and physical therapy, but I decided to do that all at our gym.
I remember that.
By myself. So one of the first things I did was I rode. So Bruce came in for a Saturday workout. I just sat in the rower in the corner and I rode for the whole time of the class. I'm like, if I can just move for like 45 minutes on this like nice slow pace, that'll be cool. So at the end, Bruce comes over, class is over, and I had rode 2,000 meters.
Which, for those of you in the rowing world or in the CrossFit world or even just working out, usually takes a female around 8 to 9 minutes to row 2,000 meters. Not
look, I did
50. It. But you just also came out of brain surgery, so we'll give you a little bit of a pass there.
I mean, I was so wobbly. I was like Bambi trying to even like do a lunge. I remember one of the coaches like modifying lunges for me just, you know, because I was just out of sorts. And then one of the things I tried to do to work on my grip strength, because that was a big problem for me, was just jumping up to the rings or to the bar and just trying to hold on. So I'm like, I'm going to jump up, 20 times today. And then the next day I'm going to jump up 30 times or whatever. So I was doing these really simple things and then just kind of, as I felt like it, slowly working into harder things. And 5 weeks later, I am back. Like I can do everything I did before. Maybe not the weights, but like I could do everything.
5 weeks.
5 weeks. Wow. I was like, yes. I did a muscle up.
5
2
weeks
weeks
post brain surgery.
Yeah.
We're going to put the pictures on our show notes, but you're literally back squatting, front squatting, you're power cleaning, you're doing all these Olympic lifts.
I'm even doing GHDs and muscle ups.
Everything.
Yeah. And then I get my incision. It started to open. and that's not good. So it had healed, but then it started to open again. It was pretty gross. I would like bleed down my neck, and I would just be like, oh no, and just like try and hold pressure and make it stop. And I went in to my doctor because I just didn't want to believe that something was wrong. So I went back in and he checked it out. He's like, yeah, we've got to go back in because you have an infection. So he's like, I'm like, can I just take antibiotics? And they're like, no. If you have an infection where you had brain surgery, like that can be your death as well as cancer, if not worse. So I was like, all right. So then I was mad. I was like, from then on, my attitude really changed from being positive to just pissed off. I was mad at
You've hit your wall.
The situation. I was mad at God. I was mad. I was like, so you're going to bring me through this and I'm going to get an infection and die? Like, honestly, I had a whole different attitude. It was really heartbreaking, but I knew that I had to do it. It was something I had to face again. I had to, put my big girl pants on and go back. The hospital, he wanted to see me that night.
What kind of risk does this surgery involve?
It's exactly the same. So they reopen my skin. They open up, because I have plates in my head where they had taken off the piece of my skull. They take those plates out. They recut my skull. They reopened my brain sac, and they cleaned out everything they could get to. Scraped, cleaned. There was swelling again, so which means there was deficits again. It was a harder surgery, and it just took way more out of me. I think because I had just had it. Recovery was brutal. I was on so much medication, and now I'm on antibiotics, like serious, hard-hitting antibiotics that make me sick. And then I left with the PICC line this time. So, and they kept me in the hospital longer because it was a little bit harder on me. And I know that hysteria or whatever that thing is that people get when they're in the hospital too long where they go crazy, like I know that that's real because I was there.
You were there.
I was there. I was like telling Bruce, like, if that nurse comes back in, I'm going to chuck something at him. Like, because they called me the wrong name, or they were like the poop police. Like, you have to poop after you have surgery. I have all these antibiotics, and I'm just like, they won't let me leave till I poop, and I can't poop. And so I was like ready to break out. I don't care. We can talk about this.
We're talking about opening up your skull. Feel free to talk about poop too. Seriously, I don't care.
I was like, and then, oh man, it was like the Twilight Zone. It really was freaky. And all the plants were plastic. And I was just like, I feel like a caged animal in the zoo. It was crazy. It was really tough.
Because you thought it was all behind you.
Yeah.
You thought, this is over. We're done. I'm back to working out. I'm doing my muscle ups and my working out.
Missed my kids' first day of school. I missed a lot.
And that's tough on a mom.
Totally. So we got through it. I got home. I wasn't as joyful to be around. My friends who tried to comfort me, bless their hearts, I was like, just go. Like, just, like, I wasn't nice. But you have to go through that, and you have to, like, because I felt like with the first one that I, like, cheated it, like, I had cancer, but I didn't have to, like, go through these things that other people do. So then when I had to go through it, I was like, F this, like, now I guess I asked for this, but it was, like, you have to go through the whole experience to really, like, know what it really is to fight, because I didn't have to fight that much the first time. It was all kind of taken care of for me, and then that second time, everything was harder, and I had to be stronger. And so did my family, because they were pooped from the first one, and then here we go again.
No.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, is this round 2? Is there more rounds
and
coming
how
along?
many rounds? And then I was so convinced, and I told Bruce this. I said, I think I'm just like a ploy in this bigger story, and I think that I'm doomed, and this is all like for your story. I felt like my story was just for Bruce. Like, I was going to be, he's going to have to raise the kids by himself. I'm going to die. And, this is not for me. Like, I felt like this was for me at first, and then I felt like I was almost like a sacrifice in the story. So I obviously needed therapy because I did go through a time of major PTSD and anxiety. And I went to that crazy place, and we
we were a team and strong enough to like, you think I was afraid of therapy because I was afraid they were just going to pull more like ghosts out of the closet, that it was just going to make things harder. And I didn't want to go to groups or whatever because...
You're talking about like talking to a therapist,
yes,
not occupational therapy.
Right.
Okay.
Like a therapist to kind of help me sort out all of these feelings. But I couldn't sleep. And when you can't, I know, as a firefighter, when you can't sleep, you're even more crazy. So the PTSD was not letting me sleep. I would walk around from room to room. I would sleep in my kids' beds, on my kids' floor, on my bed, on my floor, in the living room. I would listen to podcasts. I would listen to church. I would listen to anything that I thought would be like almost like a comforting thing next to me, but like, I could fall asleep. Whenever I would take like melatonin, like something even just small to kind of help me fall asleep, it would scare me because I would feel like I was going under into surgery again. And then I would startle myself. So every time I even started to doze, I would startle myself. And it was until I decided to take that step and talk to somebody to help sort out everything that had happened to me and all these feelings and the reality of my mortality and all of that stuff that I kind of like pulled it back together. But it took a lot of time and a lot of patience from my family to get me back to good, to sane. Because honestly, like I was afraid of my own voice. I was afraid of crowds. I was afraid of anything. Like it was everything set off that like intense flush of flight or fight. It was
How long
intense.
did that last for?
Months. A long time. And I think the more I talked, it was more of the talking than any, like, of course they give you like medication to help with, anxiety or whatever. And that helps like in the moment, but then the talking is what helps long term. And that was another person that's really responsible for me being where I am. She's another one. I'm like, I wish she was like my grandma or something that I could invite over. Because that talk therapy really helps you put everything like back in order, back in perspective. Because when your life is like thrown in the air, you have to like put everything back. You can't just like leave it there and then just walk around like everything's fine.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't work like that. I want to start transitioning into the good news.
Yeah.
Right? Because, you've been through, let's just say, you've been as close to hell as possible.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you have gone through the ringer, brain surgeries times 2, infections, up and down. Mm-hmm. But before you ever got sick, you were active. Mm-hmm. And so what was the thing that you were, obviously really, really passionate about right before you got sick? You're certified in it.
Oh, weightlifting. I was transitioning from CrossFit to weightlifting.
Which is funny because when you see pictures of her, I think you're like 105 pounds soaking wet. Yeah. So this 105-pound girl's big into weightlifting.
I loved CrossFit, but I loved the complexity of weightlifting. I loved like how it was a skill that you kind of like hone and you never master. You just get like better, but it's measurable. And I loved it. And it made me feel strong and empowered.
So you had told me that even prior to your surgery, you had this vision of continuing to do Olympic lifting at a competitive level again.
I wanted to. I wanted to try that at a competitive level and see what happens, like see where I can get. And I'm still, reaching for those goals.
But recently you did do some...
Yeah.
You had a show or a competition.
Yeah. So actually a year after my surgery, it just happened to be, I didn't even realize it till like the week before. But my first weightlifting meet was on my year anniversary from my first surgery. And I placed and I had a score that would help me or would qualify me for a national meet.
So 1 year after the second brain surgery or the first one?
The first one. 1
year after the first brain surgery, you qualify for an Olympic lifting meet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So then take us through, the training and everything to lead you up to where you made it to.
Yeah. So I did one more. I worked, with a coach and he helped me get to my next meet and I did even better. And it was just such a good, empowering experience. I really did nothing but weightlifting.
And people are probably like, how can you just like snatch and clean and jerk and do accessory stuff and that's it, not get bored? But everything is just so like precise. It's amazing. And when you see yourself get stronger and I don't know, it's so cool.
I think with weightlifting too is, I mean, your brain has to work at such a high level because
it's so fast.
A millimeter in the wrong direction on your pull or your push, you're not going to get the lift.
And so much fast decision making happens. It was a big challenge, and I like wanted that. I wanted to see what I can do and I'm capable of in that area. So then second meet went awesome. And then we started training for Miami, Florida. There was the American Open Series. And it was so cool. I totally bombed out. But it was a good experience for me because I feel like, as with anybody, like anytime you win, anytime you like, you know, just something just goes really well, like you get that high and you're excited and you're happy about it, but it doesn't like give you anything in return but that moment. Like there's no learning, there's what's driving you now? Like what, just to beat yourself from that last time? But when you do something wrong or if you miss something, you're very critical and it just drives you to work harder and not make the same mistake again. So I am going to go back next year with a vengeance. And right now I'm just kind of like cherry picking the heck out of what I want to do. I weightlift, and I told my coach that I also want to just do whatever I want. So he gave me 2 days a week to do what I want. I went hiking one of those days this week. I do CrossFit still. I like the community with CrossFit. I think it's amazing. And like I said, that gym was my PT. It's my family. They are incredible.
So I know you say you bombed, but I mean, from an outsider looking in or from somebody listening, I mean, you went and lifted competitively, you know, all the way on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Not even a whole 2 years after inoperable brain tumors is what they told you.
Yeah.
So I think you need to kind of put that in perspective too. Like,
I know, and I'm getting better.
Yes, you might have missed your lift, but
I know.
How many people out there go through 2 brain surgeries, go through the emotional roller coaster of my husband's going to be probably raising my kids is kind of what you're thinking for a while, to now your brain and your body are working at, like you said, when you're doing an Olympic lift, your brain has to move so incredibly fast to get your body to tell your muscles to do a certain, or your brain to tell your muscles, you know, pull, push, you know, get underneath it. There's so many moving parts. From somebody that's been in the CrossFit world for a while, I have so much appreciation for Olympic lifting because you'll see guys that don't look very strong, but they can lift way more than you.
Yeah, it's so technique driven.
So technique driven. And so I think the fact that not only you went back to the gym and worked out, that you qualified and you were invited to go work out at that meet.
Yeah. I know I'm getting better about saying thank you when people tell me good job because I just want to be like,
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive. So very cool.
Thank you.
What's different about Andy today than maybe say 2014 as far as the way you look at things?
Perspective. I've shifted my perspective. I decided right away that I wasn't intentional enough with my life before. I just kind of like let things happen to me, or I was like really guided by other people's plans for me, or, you know, I'm a people pleaser, making other people happy. And then I was like, you know what? I have to be intentional and figure out what is most important to me. And those are the things that are my new priorities. It's not, I mean, when we were running late to the gym one day, Bruce and I, just to work out, he's like, we're going to be late. I'm like, so who cares? We're going there to have fun. And he just like couldn't understand like this whole shift in me. Cause I was like a type A personality. Like I had everything in order. And then it was just like, we're going to the gym. Like, just slow your roll. Let's have some fun. So I put family and the things that I love in perspective, and I was intentional about spending time when I was in that moment. That was the moment I was in. It wasn't, you know, what's next or what's behind me.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's so much that I learned, and I've watched you walk through this the last 2 years, and I think I only knew 10%.
Yeah.
So there's like a whole aspect of this that I have such more appreciation and respect for. I think it's awesome. One of the things I always ask all the guests on the show is, you know, what do you read? You know, what's one of your favorite books that you could recommend?
So my favorite book was by The Alchemist, or it's called The Alchemist. It was recommended to me by an amazing friend of mine who, when I was going through all of these panic attacks and, can't sleep, she recommended this book to me. And I'm like, it can't be too crazy, like intellectually, because I am crazy right now and I might take it the wrong way or like whatever. She's like, no, this will make you think in a good way. It really is about figuring out like your life's purpose and going for goals and being driven by this like voice inside of you. And one of the lines in the story, I don't know it, perfectly, but it was more like the more you shut up that little voice inside of you, the quieter it's going to get until it's not there anymore at all. And so it was like, listen and nurture that voice inside of you that is leading you. So it's an amazing book. It's totally a metaphor or like a parable for your life. You can take it so many different ways because this guy who's the main character, he's a shepherd. And he's on his way to Egypt, and that's like this big journey he wants to go on, and he's in pursuit of his treasure. And your treasure can be, whatever it is. And for me, it's a lot of things, but it's that legacy that I want to leave behind. Like that's my treasure. My favorite verse in the Bible is like, where your treasure is, your heart will be also. So is your treasure something silly, like climbing the corporate ladder, or is it? Because I've heard of those people. I know those people who have retired, and they're like, that was the worst thing I ever did was chase that, the next thing in my career. I should have, spent more time here or there, because that's what I leave behind, and that's my treasure. So that is why it's my favorite book. I suggest it to everybody. It's a quick, easy read. Like you could read it in a week if you wanted to. But I always keep it around and I reread it and I relook at it, and I always get something new out of it. Okay,
so we'll definitely have links to that book in our show notes. Also, a question I'd like to ask is, what do you have on the home screen of your phone?
A picture of my kids at the fire station with their arms around each other.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think so many of us get caught up in the business world, or we get caught up in things that really don't matter as much as, the bigger picture. And I think it takes a good story. Thank you for going through this and sharing your story so we can at least pause and say, are we living life to the fullest? Is there more that I could be doing, that I should be doing, that I'm telling myself no, like that little voice in your gut? So I think, hearing your story, talking firsthand from somebody that literally, you face death.
We're all dying.
We're all dying.
That's the thing. We are all dying. And you don't even know. Like I told Bruce, but I'm dying faster than you. And he's like, you don't know that. I can get hit on the way home from work. And I died first. He's like, so stop living like that.
One thing we didn't talk about that I do want to just mention real quick, because I think it's really, really important, is you had life insurance though before all this happened, correct?
Yeah.
Did that ever cross your mind as far as like your family financially was taken care of?
Yes. It was a big relief, because we have a big backstory. Okay, so we were in financial trouble. We lived in a trailer in his parents' backyard to get ourselves back up on our feet. And we had in a rental house, and I get cancer. And I'm like, crap, we never got back on our feet.
Yeah.
So, we did. We went through all the steps. We have, we had a cushion. We were never in financial distress during this. But the fact that I knew if I died, he would get $500,000. I'm like, he will be set. He can take care of what he needs to take care of. Mm-hmm. And he can, do what he needs to do. So that was encouraging for me.
What you know. Now, let me ask you this, and this is just how it is in the insurance world. Mm-hmm. If you were to go get life insurance today, what would they tell you?
Oh, probably heck no.
Right?
I probably couldn't even get insurance right now if I wanted.
And that's the world we live in, but that is the truth. And the reason why I wanted you to tell people that is, if you're sitting out there and you think you're going to have a family, or you have a family and you don't have this in place.
Yeah.
You can't wait till tomorrow, right? And I didn't realize how powerful that was until I've heard your story. I heard another girl share her story about how she got life insurance when she was 20.
Yeah, we were in our 20s too.
Yeah, and she had an aortic aneurysm, survived, but now she's uninsurable, and now she's like, but we have it in place.
Yes.
So think about that. If you're wherever you're listening to this, think about that. And we'll put links to the show notes to, a life insurance calculator, but it's very affordable. For $500,000 in your 30s, I think you're going to pay like right around $35-$40 a month.
Yeah, I think it's
basically
so
$35 a month, and that's one piece of the puzzle that is gone, because when you hit that when you get the words inoperable tumor, brain tumor, I mean, that's one less thing that you have to stress about is, my family is taken care of.
Yeah. There's so much that goes into
huge.
that.
So when I found out you had that in place, I asked you that the other day. I'm like, hey, by the way, did you have it in place? You're like, yes. And that was huge.
Yeah.
You joked around. You say Bruce was going to make out. Yeah.
He could retire.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Andy. This was awesome. I learned so much. And I think everybody listening to this, definitely there's going to be a small change, maybe a big change, but a big takeaway from hearing this because, so many of us get caught up in just moving so fast that we forget to take a moment and think, what is this life? What's the meaning behind it? So thank you so much. And just like that, we wrap up another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. All the show notes, the links, anything that Andy and I talked about can be found over at moneypeach.com/session61. That's moneypeach.com/session61. Special thanks goes out to my producer, Steve Stewart, my assistant, Kayla Sloan. Without them, this show would not be possible. We'll see you guys next week for episode 62, where I bring on an incredible entrepreneur/blogger who is generating over $100,000 every single month in her business. It's an amazing story. Can't wait for you guys to hear it. See you guys same time, same place with another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. Take care. Boom, 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 boom.